Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are taking a look at Monday night on Thanksgiving week here, Nate. We've got roughly, what do we got here? 7-8 games to choose from on a Monday night. Pretty nice slate here. We're going to kick things off with the Hawks and the Cavs in this one for you. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page as well so you can catch the other game we have up for you and our player props that we're bringing you each and every weekday of this regular season. Also want you to head to thelines.com. We have our great written content up there all season long for you guys, and our odds finder tool that you can go ahead and use to make sure you're shopping those lines to the best of your ability across U.S. sportsbooks. Nate, let's jump into these lines tonight and then get into Cavs Hawks.
Yeah, it is 8 games, and that's the first game on the schedule. Hawks plus 2.5 at Cleveland, total of 226. Then we got Magic plus 6 at Pacers, Heat without Jimmy Butler plus 8.5 at Minnesota, the Warriors plus 6 at Pelicans, Celtics minus 6 at Bulls. We're going to break that one down for you. The Knicks are plus 2.5 at the Thunder. Blazers without Dame, plus 9.5 at the Bucks, who just got Drew Holiday back. And then the Jazz are plus 3 at the Clippers to cap things off. I mean, Hawks Cavs right now, I really don't want to try to pick a winner in this game, I think. But I really do like the over at the same time. I think the Cavs are not as good defensively as they were last year. Still pretty good. But for various reasons, just the scheme, and they're way better offensively. I mean, that's what we know first and foremost. They're 5-2 to the over at home at this point. And key here, 6-1 to the over when they're slight favorites, 1 to 4 points. Even the under in that when they are favored was a pretty high total. They just went slightly below it. And I mean, their defense, like I said, is not quite as good. And even when it was excellent last year, Trae Young was just a scheme breaker for them. I mean, they protect the rim so well with Allen and Mobley, but Trae's just the giant killer. I mean, whatever he's known how to do this his whole life. It seems he's got his array of floaters, finishes at the rim, great passes out of traffic. In 3 regular season games against the Cavs, he averaged 35, 9.5 assists, shot 50 from the floor, 46% from 3, was a plus 36. Atlanta won all 3. All 3 went over. Atlanta scored 125 a game with a 133 offensive rating with Trae leading the way. And then in the playing game as well, 38-9 and better than 50% shooting. That one went under, of course, because it's a winner go home situation. But yeah, Atlanta on the road right now, if you just bet that over every time, you would be up 600% because they're 6-1. Yep. And they've gone over in 10 of their last 14 overall. On the road, you look, their defensive rating jumps 7 points per 100 possessions. They score 4 more points per game. They shoot 8 percentage points better from 3. And their 6 bets in fourth quarter scoring, that was a lot higher before what they struggled against Boston. Oh, but that was at home, so it didn't affect their road scoring. In any case, I mean, you look at their last 8, playing with good pace, 101 right now, scoring 115. Their last 2 roadies, 121 in Milwaukee. They gave up 121 in Philadelphia against a team that's generally slow-paced. I mean, there's a lot of really key numbers here. The 2 that really jumped at me is that Cleveland, they're going over at home because they get to the line so well with Donnie and Darius Garland breaking people down, 6th most free throws. And right now Atlanta's allowing the highest percentage of points off free throws when they're on the road, 21% of their points. And then that both these teams are guarding the 3-point line pretty well, or Atlanta specifically, and Cleveland is bottom 8 in terms of their points off threes recently. Atlanta is dead last in points off threes. So the mid-range game is going to be key here. I got to mention as well the injuries. Karis LeVert out, or doubtful. Kevin Love out. Yeah, not as important. But with LeVert out, I think we see a lot more of Cedi Osman, who's slightly worse defender. I mean, probably a way worse defender to be honest, and a good offensive player. I mean, LeVert's been awful on offense this year, and has not been a good fit alongside those 2 creative guards. So I think, and Osman had 20 points in 27 minutes the last time he faced Atlanta. Still was a -5. So I think they're going to trade a little offense for defense there. You'd think, oh, maybe their defense will be better because Isaac Okoro and Lamar Stevens will play more. Well, they both have like 135 defensive rating in those last 3 against Trey and the Hawks. So I just see a lot of points coming here. We did whiff on this when Cleveland was at Golden State, but I think this time we will be right that there will be plenty of points going back and forth.
Yeah, what you just said only really adds to what we're saying. They were in Golden State for that game, right? And that one ended at like under 210, but that's not this situation. So this is a total situational matchup here. We were looking for things we liked on this slate in general. And this just, there's not that many spreads tonight that I really want to hit. There's a lot of guys out, so creating these giant, 9 to 11 point spreads for teams like the Blazers in Milwaukee, Miami, and Minnesota. So I don't love all of those things. And in this matchup, I do lean Cavs a bit. I think the situation calls for over. Like this game should probably be 230, 231 in my opinion. I think one of these teams is getting to like 120 points, essentially 118 points. So that makes me feel really good about 226. The situation calls for the over everywhere. You just touched on it in a myriad of different ways. You can also talk about obviously Atlanta away is 6-1 to the over when they're dogs on the road as well, 4-1. When they're in these situations on no rest, Cleveland is 2-0, which they are right now, which I think is a little bit of the hesitancy to take them even with a small spread. But not only is Atlanta just their defense is worse on the road, their offense is better on the road, and Trey Young is the road assassin, as we know. So that's why we're definitely looking for him tonight. And when Trey Young goes, that offense goes, right. Like even if they're not playing at the pace on the road that they are at home, still 100 pace on the road, which is still good for roughly top 10 in the league overall. 103 at home is absurd. So you're not going to hit that, but they're way more efficient on the road with the way they're doing things. The defense is way worse. We talked about that as well. The matchup leads to me liking Cleveland a little bit more if I had to. It's only a 2-point spread, so it's not like I feel super comfortable either way. But you also look at, like I said, them in no rest is a pretty good situation as well, dating back to last season. I do like the fact that everything that you said like about the matchup in terms of Atlanta's offense and their lack of defense, their defense against threes, their lack of defense in other areas that I think you can expect some pretty nice results for the Cavs tonight because of the fact that I do think they can bang down low well enough. As you said, Isaac Okoro coming back doesn't really scare me. He's looked a lot better as a backup center on the offensive end than we've expected, which is why another reason I think their bench scoring has not gone down the way that it did last season. As soon as you take Trey off the floor, you do have a backup big man to at least run with those guys. And obviously now that you have a few others in DeJounte on the floor to be able to run with a second unit as well, that the points continue to flow for Atlanta as opposed to that sort of stimmying that would happen when Trey would come off the floor last season. So even without Bogey. So yeah, points. If you want to pick a team in this one, I lean Cleveland, but I still don't feel comfortable enough to put money on them nearly as much as I do with the bet that I like in terms of over 226.5 tonight.
Yeah, and I'd be wary because it's the Hawks against an Eastern Conference contender now, and that's when they tend to show up. We talk about at home a lot more, but it's their home road splits are less stark now. I think they're capable of winning this game for sure after losing to the Celtics in their last kind of important one. I mean, they're coming off a home win over Toronto as well, which is what really impressed me. And gets back to Trey Young, who we're going to talk about in player props for sure. I mean, his props I looked at, I thought it was like a bit of a misprint as well. I mean, along with the total 26.5 points, it should be like 28.5, 35.5 points assists. That should also be about 2 higher after he's coming off a 33-12 game against Toronto, which this year I have more respect for what they can do defensively than Cleveland right now, especially on the perimeter. Like Cleveland protect the rim, but they don't have any answers for Trey. Like he's cooked them. And so I think if you want to look at some player performance doubles, if you want to take Atlanta, to get the juice there, that's great. But I think right now they're about even money and close spread. There's not a lot of opportunity on the spread for me.
Yeah, no question here. I'm sticking over. We gave you more than enough incentive for that on our side here. So, there's no point beating that to death. And like I said, just not comfortable enough to put money on either of these teams tonight. I think there's other spreads that are worth hitting. This game is all about the total. So that's all the time we have for you in this one. Definitely make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. We'll be back with you guys each and every weekday of this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.